And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon Wright. Tonight's episode, we're going to be joined by my guest, Eve. Eve is a member of the Disclosure community. She's also the host of Prime Declassified over on Rumble. But Eve has had a lot of experiences, and she wanted to come on here tonight and share a little bit about it. So I'm definitely looking forward to talking with her. But before we bring Eve on, if you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, you can send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Either way works, so just make sure to reach out and get a message to me. We will get something scheduled for a future episode. Keep in mind that I am booked out pretty far, so I will get back to everyone that reaches out to me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. If you would like to help the podcast out, I ask you to share it around. Word of mouth is the best way of helping the podcast grow. Every time a new listener finds the podcast, it's a potential new listener that would be a guest on the show. So that just means it could be helping me out, could be helping them out. And if you enjoy the show, I guess it helps you out too. You can also help out by leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Tinfoil Tales at. So if you're on Apple, Spotify, wherever it is, make sure to click the little 5-star link button, and it helps me out by giving the podcast a good rating that makes the podcast more discoverable for other people to potentially find out about and start listening to. And if you're like me and you do not like hearing random ads placed throughout episodes, you can become a member of the Patreon. For $1.99 a month, you get early access to all the episodes, and they're all ad-free. There's also exclusive content over there. There is a free membership if you would like to join and test it out for a little bit. Make sure to check out the show notes for a link to the Patreon. You can also look for me on all the social medias. Look for Brandon Tinfoil Tales on Facebook. That's where I'm usually the most active. But we are going to go ahead now and bring Eve on and dive into the conversation. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Eve. Thanks for coming on here and talking with me.
Oh, thanks, Brendan, for inviting me.
Not a problem. I always enjoy talking with people, so we communicated back and forth several months ago because I've been so far booked out that it's hard to keep track, and then I write down names and I lose track of people, and for anyone listening, I apologize, but I don't ask a whole lot of questions prior because I prefer to listen to the experiences during the interview. I don't want to know the whole story beforehand because then it's hard to, I don't know if I'm ADHD and undiagnosed or what, but I want to pay attention. So it's easier for me to listen when I don't know what's going to happen rather than knowing everything and then re-listening to it.
Right. Yeah, I'm undiagnosed ADD. Well, they said I was borderline, but I chose not to take the medication, and I tend to bounce all over. So please forgive me if I bounce all over. I am unmedicated, and I had an energy drink. All right.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself before we dive into it?
Sure. I grew up on a series of Native American reservations in Minnesota. I'm from White Earth, but my mother is from Red Lake, and we lived on the Leech Lake Reservation, which is, really huge, but a lot of really strange things, happened to me. One of them was I was 3. And this is something I remember turning, I was looking at my uncle. He had a pen and the pig had just had piglets. So we were like checking him out and climbing on the fence. And for some reason, I just like turned around and I remember walking away. And I walked towards the lake and there was like a path behind my uncle's house. And I followed that. And then there was like an area where you could go through and there would be the beach. It would slowly turn into sand. And I remember standing there and there were like shells. I remember looking at the shells and the big, muzzle shells and reeds that were hollow. And I look up and I don't remember anything after that. And I don't know, my sister must have went in the house and they were like, where is she? Where's your baby sister? I don't know. So she's like, go find her. And so my sister was like, oh, she ran back by that path that ran parallel to the lake. And she caught sight of me. And I remember her yelling my name. And I remember looking over, but not seeing her yet. And then I looked back again where I was looking. And she came running up. And she just like grabbed my arm. And she's like, look, she's not looking at me because she's looking where I was looking. And she grabbed me. And I remember getting in trouble. And that's all I really remember. But there was always this picture that my mom had my sister draw of what it was that was there was a individual standing there. And for some reason, it's like totally digitally erased from my memory. I cannot remember what was standing there. I remember everything in fine detail, but I don't remember what it was. And she said it was like a tall man. He had kind of grayish skin, and she drew a picture, and he had really long arms and really thin. And she thought for a minute that he wasn't wearing clothes, but she realized that he was like wearing something. And she drew it for my mother, and we had that picture for a long time. And I think it was just a couple years ago, I went to visit her and I was like, no, Mom always talked about this incident, but I want to hear from you. What was that? And she explained that, she got in trouble. She went back by the lake. She saw me. She was yelling my name. I wasn't reacting to that. I was just standing there staring straight ahead with a smile on my face. And she came running up and she couldn't see who it was at first. But when she saw who it was, she got scared. And immediately she heard this voice tell her, don't be scared. Yeah, and she was just like, oh. So she grabs my arm, and in her head, she tells this being, you're not taking her. And she grabs me, and he runs away. She said, and as he's running away, she's like, he's not even, his feet aren't even on the ground. And he turned around and he took off like something she's never seen before. And she's like, don't you remember that? And I was like, no, I don't. I remember everything. I remember the piglets. I remember the fence was really high. I was only 3. I remember walking back to the path. I remember seeing the path that goes to the beach. But after that, it's just blank. Except for when I turn and I hear her calling me. So this is kind of going to fast forward.
Before you do,
yeah.
What did she say the face looked like? Was it the typical? Obviously, to me, it sounds like a gray.
Right.
But is that the type of face that she described, or did it look more human?
Well, this fast forwarding is gonna explain everything.
Okay.
So I had just moved to the Mille Lacs area, which is like basically in the middle of Minnesota. And it's a very small reservation. And I had just moved there, and it was like 2005. And I had my own daughter, and she was 13. And I asked her, oh, I left my purse in the car. Here are the keys. Will you go grab it for me? And she comes back, and she's got this look on her face, and she just dumps the purse and the keys and everything and walks away. And I was like, thank you. She didn't say nothing. So I was taking her to my mother's house, and I was like, "Are you gonna tell me, what's wrong?" And she said, "I saw something." I said, "What did you see?" She said, "Oh, I walked out of the RV," and she said, I pushed the door shut, and she said, "And something just made me want to look to the right." And we were in the very back of the RV park. And there was like a fence with like two barbed wires. That was just two strands of barbed wire there. And there was kind of like a field. And she said there was this man standing there. And I said, "What did he look like?" And she said he was really tall. He looked like he wasn't wearing any clothes, but he didn't have any private parts. She said, and he was standing there, and he had like kind of like a oddly shaped head. He didn't have any hair, no eyebrows, no nothing. And I got scared. And then he says to me, you know, I'm not here to hurt you. Don't be frightened. And she didn't say nothing, but she ran to the car, grabbed it, and she went running in the RV, and that's when she put it down. And I said, when you get to grandma's, I want you to draw what you saw. So she did. And my mother said that was the exact same thing that my sister saw when I was 3 years old. Exact same being. The eyes were kind of big, teardropped, she said. But they weren't like utterly black. There was like, my daughter couldn't see that far, but she was explaining the exact same thing. But what my sister saw was in detail. And there was just not really much of a nose. And there were like nostrils there, and then there was no lips, but there was like a line. And the one thing that my sister said was that it was smiling at me, and I was smiling back. So that's why I said, they watch certain bloodlines, certain families,
Mm-hmm.
and this thing has, I don't know if it's the same exact being, but it looks exactly the same. And then all of a sudden, both pictures just disappeared. It was really, really odd. So we didn't really get a chance to show anybody. They just were gone.
Do you
So
know about how tall they were? 'Cause you said they were tall. Usually, when people say they see these figures or whatever, they're shorter.
yeah, my daughter said there was nothing really to compare it to. She just said he was tall, and the grass was probably about waist high, maybe, the weeds and stuff in that pasture behind the RVs. And there was no trees, so we couldn't figure out how tall he was. But she said he was really, to me, she said he was tall because he was kind of far away, but I could still see that he was tall where the grass went. She's like, I could see that he had no like private parts. So he must have been, I'm like 5'6". So that thing must have, been taller than me.
One of the things, because of your location, it makes me think of, instead of like the whole gray alien aspect, I kind of go into the whole Wendigo aspect too, because that was prevalent, I'm pretty sure, up in that area at one point. And I know people say the depictions nowadays are bastardized because of the goat or the deer head and the antlers and everything, but that's not what the original Wendigo was supposed to be. It was more of a long, grayish humanoid figure, but I think they had longer hair. But basically, they were people that turned into these things from cannibalism. They were almost like a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
But
that's the same story that I heard too. So just to validate that.
I say I hear people talk about it all the time, and they're like, "Oh, it had antlers," and stuff. I was like, "Well, that's not necessarily what they looked like. That's just what the white people just decided to change it into because it wasn't scary
and it
enough."
Probably was, something, antlers just, thrown up on a tree. It could have looked, from a distance like something like that. I've never, and I've lived in quite a few and visited quite a few reservations. Never seen anything like that. I know my mother warned me and about a couple of things, and they were like, I think it was like the goat man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the rabbit man, which, I can hear people laughing because you think the Energizer Bunny, but this thing had claws, and it just like they were having like a little bonfire, and having a few drinks. My mom was probably like 18, 17, 18, and this thing came out of the woods, and everybody was like running, but someone had gotten scratched. I don't know. She never really went into detail, but um,
Did
that's
did it look like a large rabbit? Like did it have
yeah. It had the body of one. She didn't, everybody took off running, but they saw something flying out of the woods at them.
I have an
And
episode that hasn't been released yet, but by the time this airs, it'll already be out. So,
okay.
but someone had saw something on the side of the road, and it was the description they were giving almost had like that sort of like really thick leg, like type leg, whatever. And then 8 or 10 years later, I forget the time frame, but someone had ran over a kangaroo or a wallaby or
Oh.
something like that.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure it was also up around Minnesota. I'm pretty sure the guy said he was from Minnesota during the interview. It's been like a little over a month ago since I talked to him, so I kind of forget the exact location. But
Hmm. Yeah.
why would there be a random kangaroo
No.
in Minnesota out in the wild?
Yeah, there are people, wealthy enough to have those kind of animals, but you need the permits for it, and I'm not quite sure on the laws of, different species kept in captivity as pets. But
I've seen a lot of people recently trying to explain cryptid sightings, especially like dogman type sightings with kangaroos.
Hmm.
I said, I'm pretty sure people would know what a kangaroo. I understand if you're not expecting to see a kangaroo, but I think it's more of it's a common enough animal that you would know the difference between a bear, a dog, or a kangaroo.
Right. Yeah, well, this would be like about 80. Just I think about between 70, 80 years ago when it was first seen, and then until now, if it was a species that was just by itself, how long do, wallabies or I'm sorry, kangaroos, live? So, I
I
mean,
wouldn't think that long, so they have to have a
yeah,
breeding population. But
right.
yeah,
So,
that
but I
that
mean, I'm not dismissing it because my best friend, when I was living, I was on the Leech Lake Reservation. My best friend lived about 4 miles from me, and she had a mountain lion named Bonnie. She had goats. She had the largest horse ever, and then the smallest, like the little tiny horses, and or just one of each. And then she had, what else did she have? Oh yeah, she had a Siberian tiger, and this was like a baby. Like her mother did some sort of helping animals. I can't remember the name of the place that she worked, but yeah, I got to hold a baby Siberian cub.
there's
And
a
it,
place somewhere, and I forget where it was. They would let you come and actually play with like baby ones, but
oh, I wouldn't recommend it. They have to cap those nails because they can scratch. And I was like, nope, nope, don't like it. It scratched me. It was trying to chew on my arm, and I'm like, how is this going to react to me when he gets older?
this was several years ago, and I'm pretty sure probably after the whole Tiger King thing came out, they probably don't do it anymore because it seemed to come with a crackdown on people with big cats. But I know they had like some sort of a petting, and I forget where it was, but they had like different types of animals. Most of they were exotic type cats and stuff, but they would bring out the little cubs or whatever for people to play with.
I think there was a place I might be wrong, but in around Brainerd, Minnesota, where they had, animals, kind of like a petting zoo type thing. And I don't,
Petting wild animals, like I understand they're not wild, but technically, yes, they are. To
yes.
me, it might be cute and cuddly. It could still put a pretty big bite on you if it wanted to.
Oh yeah, most definitely. It hurt, and it was playing, but I was like, I don't like the way that it plays because I got scratched, I was,
Hmm.
hmm. So I remember I didn't really care for it. And then she had goats too, but
I've got a
things
couple
she had.
goats. They're
Hmm.
goats are very interesting animals.
Yes, they are. And they didn't like me. I'd be hanging from the rafters because they were couldn't even get out of there because they were trying to hit me with their heads. And they got that one pointy part that's just, oh, it hits you no matter where. It's ow.
Yeah. So one goat has horns, the other one doesn't. So,
Hmm.
but
But when you were talking about hitchhiking or along the side of the road, I had a memory of something that happened to me when I was like 19. Um, my boyfriend and I and one of his friends, we went to a movie and we kind of hung out and we kind of got scared because we were like, it was dark and we were coming back from like this ski area. And um, we had heard of stories of they called him the Devil Man. And a couple of people had that I knew were talking about having seen it running. It looks like a ball of fire, and the closer it gets, you realize it's a man running, and it's done. Scared us, but we didn't come across anything like that up by the ski area. We were going through town, and there was an old highway to get to the town where my boyfriend lived, and then there was a highway. So I was like, okay, so do I go 65 and you know not worry about cops or worry about cops, or do I go on this curvy road where there are no cops but there's deer, both have deer. And we get to this Y there where I'm gonna have to make a choice, and I start slowing down and I see this woman, she's hitchhiking. And it's summertime. I mean, it's, in Minnesota, that could be chilly or it could be warm. And she was wearing layers of clothing. And I thought, well, she's homeless or something. And she makes eye contact with me through the windshield. It's dark and my lights are on her. Usually when you see cars, you can't really see inside, but she made eye contact with me and she started to smile. And that's not the worst of it. Uh, Her jaw just like dropped down, and there were these 3-inch long teeth on the bottom and on the top. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know what to do. I was like frozen. And my boyfriend, like, he's hitting me, but he's not saying anything. And then we have our friend in the back seat, and he's jumping up and down. He's like, "Do you see her teeth? Oh my God, look at her teeth!" And we're like, "Good." And my boyfriend finally gets his voice, and he's like, "Go, go!" And he pushes my gas pedal down, and we just fly past this woman. And I was like, my heart's beating. I'm like, I'm so freaked out. And they're like, just go, 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 go. And so I was like going like probably about 75. And finally I had to slow down. And I was like, "Is she behind us?" No. I mean, I was scared to drive home by myself after that.
no, I don't blame you. When
I think I had a psychic on my show, and he said it was like the reason why everybody saw exactly what I saw was because they were in close proximity to me. So I don't know exactly what that means, but kind of do.
if you're, I have, I'll make a guess. I don't know what I'm talking about half the time, but I feel like if you have the ability to see things, maybe your energy with around the other people have a way of manifesting that vision to them too.
Hmm. Maybe. Yeah, that's kind of what I thought too, what he said. I didn't go too much into it. But I think I went on like a paranormal podcast, and the gentleman had made shirts, and I have one. But yeah, I even see. I was my boyfriend and I. We eventually married. We had two girls, and he lives out on the West Coast, and I was like talking back and forth, drawing this thing, and and we were, the memory of seeing it was very, like, almost very similar to everything you said. The only thing was I thought the hair was like kind of dirty, maybe dirty blonde, brown, light brown, and he thought it was like red, and I was like, no. She was wearing like a red hoodie though.
I don't know of anything like, I haven't really heard something like that per se, so I don't really know how to relate to it as what it would have could have been or anything like that, but it's definitely strange.
Well, I think the psychic said it was a spirit, but I was seeing it, and then they were seeing it because of me. So I mean, you can see why I didn't, I was very scared as a child of my abilities and seeing things, and knowing things and hearing things, but not like to the point where, I've been tested and they checked. They said, you're not, the only thing I had was I think it was anxiety.
I think
And
everyone has anxiety. They said I do too.
yeah, intermittent explosive disorder, which, it's something that you have to learn, because I would have moments where it was like someone just threw me in the back seat, and they it was like I couldn't control it, or I'd black out, and something would happen, and I wasn't even aware that it was happening.
Mhm.
Some people are telling me, "Well, this is exactly what you did," and I'm like, complete nothing. So, what was I going to say now? Okay, so I wanted to bring up one thing. This is the second, this is like I think I was in preschool, and I was sitting on my dad's shoulders at this parade, and my mother pointed, "Look, turn around, turn around." So my dad turned around, and there was a clown right in front of my face. And I started screaming and slapping at it. I don't remember if that's what they said I did.
That's a very
Uh,
logical thing to do as a child.
It was right there. My father was only like 5'7". This thing had to been, it was right there in my face. I couldn't believe it. And to this day, clowns, no, no, thank you. I can't do that.
You'd mentioned the clown thing right before we started recording.
hmm
Is this something that you've experienced more than once? Like the thing with like seeing clowns?
Yeah, seeing um seeing clowns. I know that there was this certain statue, not statue, but in a restaurant where the clown is like their big deal or whatever, there would be a clown
Mm-hmm.
in the playland area.
Mm-hmm.
And I would always walk around it. Just it, no matter where you went, it was looking at you. And it I mean, gosh, it was really bad. I guess I had this. I remember in second grade having this lamp. It had three balloons, little tiny, box where they were selling the balloons from, and it says 5 cents. And I saw it on a movie once, and I had to pause it and look at it, and it was the same lamp, except for that lamp had a clown. So my father had taken the clown off the lamp for me. So it was pretty bad.
I've known a lot of people that are afraid of clowns, and I don't know what the actual phobia is called, but my wife even today doesn't like clowns. And I think a lot of it has to do, I used to relate it back to being because of Stephen King, but if it even goes further back than it, basically clowns have always been something that's caused phobias. And I don't understand how that's possible, but here lately, and this is falling into the trope of trendy podcast trends, and I try not to do that, but people now are claiming, which they claim everything is,
Mhm.
but Nephilim looked like clowns. There's a guy out there that says that through his research, whatever, he thinks that some of the Nephilim or whatever, the fallen angels, took the shape and faces of clowns. And that's where the phobia, I think, originated from.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true or not? I have no idea. But
No clue. I've never heard of that. Sorry.
yeah, that's something that's been going around. I've actually want to try and get hold of the guy for an interview. But
Mm-hmm.
everything that I've noticed in the last couple of years has turned into Nephilim, which
Mm-hmm.
for anyone listening that should know is like the Nephilim's basically the fallen angels had bred with the women, and this is their offspring, and they're like whatever.
Giants.
But for some reason, they call everything today Nephilim and demons. That seems to be the two things that everything is these days. I try not to go that path because I think it's a little overblown and clickbaity, but whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and I had a situation when I was 18 where I was just like, I had moved out. I was like, I think I was like, it was the winter right before I turned 18. And my mom and I were fighting as mother and daughters do. So I said, I'm moving out. So I moved out and I had this little apartment and there was, I don't know what it was, but it just felt like this whole feeling. I'm an empath, so I can feel a lot, and I started feeling like this, like something was coming for me. And I didn't know what to do. So I was like, well, I could grab my kid, I had baby, grab my kid and I could go out to the car but I had to go outside. And I was like, I'm not going outside. And I didn't know what to do. I was walking around and it just kept getting more and more and more. And then pretty soon I started to like have like, these smells I could smell. And it was like a very burning to my nose type smell. And it was like putting things in my head. And, I never saw them. So I can't say that they were, you know, demons, demonic, anything. But I was like, I don't know what to do. And, they were telling me things like, we're going to, torture your son in front of you. And then we're going to, and they were going on. And I was like, that's not happening. So I called my sister and I said, she was very religious. And I called her and for some reason she picked up the phone. And I said, you need to pray with me. Now I'm a lapsed Catholic. And then, I kind of went on this journey when I was like 14 about everything else because I just felt that wasn't right for me. But she got out her Bible and she started praying and I was repeating everything, with her and stuff. And pretty soon I noticed that whole thing, that whole feeling that dark, something's going to happen feeling, or we're coming for you feeling was gone. And I was like, oh, so words hold power, like a vibration.
Mm-hmm.
And, and certain words put into certain phrases, I feel have extreme power. So, I mean, I've been, attacked by something that was in my dream. And when I woke up, it was on top of me. I couldn't see it because there was a blanket. I had pulled the blanket up. And this was like right before my father died, which was in 2023. Oh, 22, excuse me. And I went to sleep in the everybody else said, don't sleep upside down in your bed. We're told this as children. I'm like, why? Well, I can tell you another story where I was sleeping upside down, what happened. But it jumped on top of me. Something in my dream. I saw this girl. She had really dirty hair. Her hair was all snarly and she was wearing dirty clothes. And she walked in my bathroom, but I recognized her. But then, in my dream, I'm, of course, going to sleep. I don't know if that's most people don't sleep in their dreams, but I was falling asleep and she jumped on top of me and I could smell her. I could smell what she smelled like. It was like a very body odor, like someone who hasn't washed in weeks. So it was very sour smelling. And then there was like almost like a very, kind of like it smelled like a match. And I was like, oh, at first, when it jumped on me, I woke up immediately and I realized that it had pinned the blanket underneath its forearm. So my face was, the blanket was over my face.
Hmm.
And and I was like, for 1 second, maybe even half a second, I was like, oh, I'm scared. And then I was like, what? No, that's not happening. And so I started praying. And I did, as a, Catholic, you have these prayers stuck in your head. And someone says it and you'll pray just like that, say the exact same words. And so I said the Lord's Prayer, and by the time I got to the very end, I started screaming, and I was like, F you, I'm not effing scared of you, and I whipped the blanket. It was like I was paralyzed, and plus the weight on top of me, I couldn't move. And I whipped the blanket off and I jumped up and I was like ready to do battle. And there was like nothing in the room, but that smell stayed for about 10 minutes. I opened the window and everything. And I was like, I can't be scared of this type of stuff, because I think it was just like a lower vibration because, I was aware that my father was sick and he might not make it. So, and then you get attacks like that. So, I'm not one of these love and light people, but, I'm all about, vibration and frequency. And, I judge that by people too when I first meet them.
I've never been one to think much of it until the last couple of years because, and I will accredit it to doing this show. It's really opened my eyes to a lot more reality than what I knew. So for me, I'm very skeptical as a person. Like for me, everything I do is numbers and measurement. Like I work in construction. So for me, I'm a very scientifically, I build things. I know I do these things. So for me, I know there's stuff like that. And when you have experiences, it's easy to try and write things off because this stuff isn't real. And I feel like a lot of people are that way, but I was definitely that way. And then seeing things changes your perspective. Talking with other people has kind of opened my mind a little bit more about it. And then I think continuing to do this and the more weird stuff that has continued to happen, I'm starting to believe that obviously we are all frequencies, we're all vibrations. And I think there's lower vibration things that come on and feed on us. I know people, oh, that guy's crazy. Well, to me, it makes sense. Like even science has, like Einstein or whatever, that mathematically there's other dimensions. So why couldn't there be something from a different dimension, vibration, frequencies, or whatever you want to call them, that are able to bleed into our reality? It just makes sense to me.
I have no explanation for it. That was like science and stuff was cool, but as soon as I didn't need to take any more classes, I didn't take any more. It was like math too. I was like B work on it, but I was always getting in trouble because I never showed my work. How did you get that? You just got it. Did you copy someone's paper? No, I was home by myself. I can look, at a problem and write the answer down.
I do a lot of math in my head too, but that's just simple math. When it comes to algebra and when you start adding all the letters and everything in here, I'm done. To me, that's not math anymore.
Yeah, that is not math. That's algebra. That's totally different. Math I have no problem with, but it wasn't my forte. I was always in, English and that kind of stuff. It was reading the book list in the summer before this, before this semester started. I guess I was like a nerd, but I didn't really have a lot, any kind of click or anything. But one of the things, about that, sleeping upside down on the bed, that happened before, like a couple of years prior to this, or about a year and a half. I was laying upside down on my bed and I fell asleep. I was on my side, my left side, and I'm, my face is facing the bathroom because it was like a Jack and Jill bedroom. And there was a bathroom between. And I guess one of the things that I thought everybody could do this, it turns out nobody, but I can, with my eyes closed, I can see, I can see doors, I can see, stuff. Um, I don't know, but I think it has something to do with like the third eye. And there was like I could see something in the bathroom, and I'm laying there pretending to be asleep, and I see this, and he's kind of short. He's probably about 4 feet, and he's kind of brownish gray, but he's got kind of wrinkly skin and like a little squishy face. But he's got the
Mhm.
long, the he's got narrower, um, like teardrop eyes a little bit. And his nose is there's not much for a nose. Just like if you could get up closer, you probably see the nostrils, but I could just see like, the skin was a little bit different in that area, but and he had a mouth, and that was it. No lips or anything. I didn't really see any ears unless he had, something, but he was pretty short, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and immediately he realizes that I see him because he must be, telepathic, and he's reading my mind because I'm going, what the is that? And he backs away, and he kind of hides behind the door like he's hiding. And I was like, so, I can still see you. And then something moved in the living room because, the bedrooms went right to the dining room. I guess it was the dining room. And it was like an old, you know, before 1900s house. So a little odd. But the door was slightly open, and I see another 4 foot guy. He looks exactly like the first guy that's in the bathroom. And he's standing there looking at me, and he notices that I see him because I must have, there's another one, in my head. And he like moves back out of sight. And I'm like, what's going on? And then that's all I remember. I would go back to sleep. So I've had quite a few like really strange visits like that, or I was feeling um like I just know things, and I'll be like, "Oh, I know that they're gonna come for me tonight, and they would come, and they would, the weirdest one was I was laying there on my back, and it kind of lightly pulled me off the sheets, and I can feel my hair going, still in, in the same spot where it was, but it's not because I have long hair. And then it pulls me kind of off the bed, and I'm upside down, and I can feel my hair hanging. And I was like, any minute I can open my eyes, but for some reason I couldn't. But I was still in my bedroom. And then I heard like a kind of I don't know, a noise, but I couldn't really figure out what that noise sounded like anything I'd ever heard, so I can't even tell you what it was, but it was just like this noise. And and then all of a sudden they just lay me softly like you would lay a dress shirt on the bed, or, a dress. You'd lay it very gently down. And I was lightly put down, and I laid there. I was like, I'm like awake, and this is going on. And it was like all of a sudden my eyes just open. I could open my eyes, and I'm like looking around and stuff. And I'm like, this is so weird. But that was like the nicest that I was ever treated. I've been yanked, or else I'll have this metallic buzzing in my head. And then I couldn't open my eyes if I wanted to. And it vibrates me. It vibrates me at a very, very high vibration. And I realized what it was doing. It was vibrating me at that speed to be able to go through solid objects
Mm-hmm.
and take me up wherever they were taking me to. And as soon as that metallic buzzing would start, even now it still happens to me, and I'm like, I can fight it. I fight it off and wake up and be like, no, 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 no. Nope, nope. And then I'll walk around for a little bit, and I'll lay down.
I've,
Sometimes it starts again, but
I got a question about that.
Hmm.
Do you think they're taking your physical body, or are they taking your consciousness, soul type thing? Because if you talk to different people, it kind of varies for what they think is happening.
Right. Well, it depends. It depends on who it is and why, because sometimes they need your physical body. And that's where like the high vibration comes through because they're taking you out through physical objects, like through the ceiling,
Hmm.
and up. I always felt like I was going up. Sometimes it would feel like my legs were lifting up first for some reason, and then I would just whoop, go through, and it's vibrating. Sometimes it's a little painful, but there are instances where I can hear this metallic hum, and then they will come in, and it's almost like they're ripping my consciousness out of my body. Like my body is still there, but I can feel them pulling, and there's an area on my right lower quadrant of my back where they yank it, but it's just like, oh, if they can hear me, I'm usually, saying something to them that I can't really repeat here. But another time I know it was about 2020, and I was like a lot of people, I was getting depressed, sad. And being what most people consider to be like a light worker, um, I was losing faith. And I was like, I don't, why am I here? And I was just so distressed. And I went to bed that night. And for some reason, I'm used to a lot of noise. So I turned the TV on a timer. And went to sleep. I was on my right side. And I could feel like this something, just kind of like my head felt like really buzzy. And I was like, oh, they're here. I don't even know who they were, but I knew that I was excited. And I laid flat on my back because it's easier for them to take. And I think it had to have been my subconscious that they took, because I don't know if they took my body or not. But it was like I looked up and I saw this kaleidoscope of beautiful, like platinum, silver, gold, you know, rose gold. It was all just sparkling like a kaleidoscope. And it was inside was this looked like a tunnel. And as soon as I got close to it, where I could almost touch it, it was gone. I was gone. Yeah. And then it didn't even seem like I was gone 2 minutes because the same stupid infomercial was on, and boom, I was back in my body. And I was like, you were coming to get me, you know, for real. But I did feel better the next day. And I realized, we're all here for a mission. Our certain missions, different ones. We're not all on the same page, but so it is sometimes.
There's a
And
couple things I want to talk about.
sure.
I'll do it off air. But when it comes to some of these topics or whatever, and I mentioned earlier, like I get a lot of people sending me information about how I'm doing things wrong, how the guests are lying or everything like that. And I don't question guests, and everyone wants to tell me how to do what I'm doing. I
Right.
don't I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know I don't know what it is that they think that I should be doing, but I always get people that will leave comments or something negative because that's what the world
Mm,
needs, is more negativity.
yes.
But but
Certainly.
the one thing that is always brought up to me when it involves stuff like this is, why are people talking about when they're like, if their consciousness are taken out and they're brought back in there, how is that, like, how's that possible? It's like, I don't think anyone can really explain how that's possible. Like,
Uh-huh.
no one really knows,
Yeah.
but I don't know how to like relay the message without sounding like a dick. But like, to the average person, when someone says that, everyone's going to be like, oh, they were dreaming. And I think dreams are actually, as weird as it sounds, I think dreams are something that we're experiencing elsewhere, if that makes any sort of sense. Like, I think when we're dreaming, maybe our dreams are our thoughts, and we're actually in the dreamscape. We've left our consciousness has left our bodies, and we're experiencing things elsewhere.
Hmm.
I know that's just my own assumption. I have no idea what, like I said, but that's kind of how I feel about things. So when someone says that they can't take someone's mind because you're taking someone's mind, then they control everything. What are these things doing that? Like I said, it almost, when you start to think of things in that reality sense, it almost seems very simulation-y. Like these things are
It
like
is.
programmers coming in and
Yes. And you're exactly
messing with
right.
stuff.
I mean, the information that I've been given, and I do get a lot of information. I was able to access this, artificial eye programmer, and I was asking it a series of questions, but I had to realize that I had to ask it. Like, if I asked it a question and it wouldn't answer me, I had to rephrase it to the point where it understood it, and then it would tell me something. Like, it was telling me about, um how people, I was asking questions like are we real? What are we? And they were just basic, like, avatars, and I forgot what it I forgot what it was calling it, but it was basically an artificial um physical body. And you see, like, a lot of movies where, if you watch, like, I think it was Altered Carbon, they call them slaves. And you can go, remove your consciousness. So I feel like they do that. That is us. That is everything that is us is on this, whatever they take out, kind of like a chip, I
Mm-hmm.
guess you could say, but not an actual, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain, because then, at night when we leave these these physical bodies, because they requiring recharge through sleep, and then we leave. We can access, different dimensions, go to different places, and it, uh, if it's a dream, I mean, I was flying around the new neighborhood that I had never been. I just moved there. I didn't really know, but I got up, and I remember my light was on, and must have fell asleep on the floor. And I got up and I walked over to the wall, and I'm pushing myself against the wall, but it's like I can hear this, like, different frequency in my head. And then everything just, like, aligns, and I physically walk through a brick wall. And then I flew over, in this, like, I think it was like southwest direction. And yeah, I mean, that is, and I was flying around, and I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna remember where I am. So, they call that lucid dreaming. And there are rules to lucid dreaming. Like, you're not being able to read stuff. But I was like, oh, a street sign. I was like, I'm gonna go down there and see what sign it is. And it was like 9.5 street. And I was like, I'm gonna remember that. And it was like probably about a couple weeks later, I was driving home a different direction. I went past 10th Street, and I recognized the park. I was like, I remember this park. So I went around the block, and one of the first streets that I see, well, I see the street that I was looking at in the sign. And when I went to it, it was 9.5 Street. So, I mean, I've had letters. People are like, oh, I'm never able to, I don't even know about my phone, but I've had my phone. I'm able to use it. I call people. I sleep, I eat. All the things they tell you that you're not supposed to do.
I
Or so.
feel like, I think I mentioned this recently on another episode, but I don't remember my dreams very much. But I think I actually said this to you earlier. The only thing that really stands out is things that are impactful. I don't remember anything, but like the weird things are the things that I remember the most. Like every night, I obviously sleep every night. I don't remember the next day what I dreamed, but the other night I had a dream to where I don't know if it was like a tornado or what, but I was basically trying to put my family down into this like garage area, like where they change oil, like down under underneath
Mhm.
where a car would pull in. And for some reason, I got sucked up and I got thrown against the wall, and my nose was bleeding.
Yeah.
Well, later on that morning, I was actually at work. The same nostril started bleeding. I was like, that's the only part of the dream I remember. And then my nose was bleeding. The
Mhm.
same, like this all happened the same day. I was like, I don't believe in coincidences. So it's very strange that like stuff like that happens.
Oh,
And there's
yeah.
been other instances where that's happened with me before too. So for me, when that happens, I get all kind of weirded out by it because I was like, what is going on?
That's funny that you say that because I remember this. It was I like to say people say dream, but it was I was taken out and I was put in a different body, a very tall body, and I was female, and I'm standing and I can see like the curtains are to my left, and they're kind of mustard colored, and they're pulled. And it's giving me feelings of the same color my mother had in her house, were these mustard colored curtains. And when you close them, they made the orangey burnt room where you could still see people though. And I'm
Hmm.
standing there as straight, very straight, looking ahead. And all of a sudden, somebody approaches me, and it's Donald Trump. And he's standing in front of me, and he's asks kind of bends in and he goes, well, what do you think about? And he says, a sexual favor. And I'm standing there and I'm like, sir, I'm not here for that, sir. And in my calm, I'm hearing like muffled laughter, because they heard what he said. And I he was very close to me, and that's all I remember. But I was like, a year later, it pops up on my Facebook memories. And I was like, I'm gonna find out where he was that day, what was going on. So it turns out he was at the White House that day, and he was in office, and he had invited the prime minister from over, I can't remember if it was Iran, Iraq, or Afghanistan, but the prime minister was there, and he was putting on a show. So I don't know. That's all I remember, and it coincides with where he would have been.
Hmm.
And I think we watched something, and it was like the Oval Office, and I said, "Oh my God, look, the curtains are mustard." But it did give me like this feeling like I was like in this kind of circular weird room, you know.
Right.
That was when was that? That was July. No, I'll have to remember it, but yeah. That's so they just feel like me doing something else. Always. I'm always doing something, going somewhere. I mean, as a kid, I remember going on like weird military missions, and I was like 8 years old. I was maybe 8 or 9, somewhere around there, because my parents were still married at that time. And they were like, don't go in there, don't go in with no guns. They don't have any guns. They put down their knives, just go in as a show of faith and bring them out. No guns. And ta-da, they had a gun, and I got shot. And I was shot in the back, lower back in the spine. And I couldn't walk or run or get up. I wanted to get up, but I was in so much pain. And I just remember like two people grabbed me underneath my arms and just ran with me. And I woke up and I was like in severe pain still. And it took like at least 6 to 7 minutes for it to finally, ebb and go away. But for 10 minutes, I was on my bed like I got shot. And the weird thing is that I've had 4 back surgeries in that area. So
Hmm.
that's odd.
Yeah,
And
really
no
are.
way, no way, there's no injury. I never did anything to hurt my back. So why did I need 4 back surgeries? Odd.
I won't even go down that rabbit hole when it comes to the medical, the medical industry, because I have a lot that I could bitch about, but I won't. Um,
Yeah, same.
yeah, that could be an entire topic for one of my Crinkle Conspiracy podcast. But
There you go.
is there, before we wrap things up, I would like to talk a little bit about your podcast.
Oh, yes. We just celebrated our first year, and we had our 50th show, and we had like I think it was Fallout Friday, so I had 4 of them downloaded. And one of the most interesting ones was, and is it okay to say his name?
Yeah, I don't care.
Was Anthony Zender. And, he's MMA fighter. He's also, considered part of another community like SSP. So he was interesting, very good, uh, interview. And I was very happy that he did the anniversary show for me.
He was
Um,
scheduled to be on my show a week or so ago, but he had to cancel it and reschedule, but we haven't got it rescheduled yet.
oh, he's an amazing interview. So he's really good. Very good guy.
That's the problem that I have when people have to reschedule is I'm booked out so far in advance that rescheduling is not like an easy thing for me. Like you might get rescheduled, but it might be 3 months away.
Yes.
So,
Yes. I think we made this July.
mhm.
Yeah, in July, this actual interview. So it's been that long. I've been sitting on nails all no for 2 months.
No, I've got stuff for anyone listening. We're recording this here in the middle to towards the end of September, and I'm already got stuff almost booked through December. So I'm about 3 months out.
And wow, yeah, I'm still filling in spots. So it's like on Rumble, Prime Declassified podcast. I had some co-hosts, but then we're all still friends and everything. It's just it got to be too much with their jobs and everything. So I decided to go alone, and I've been on my own for a couple months now, and I think it was the training wheels.
Doing a show by yourself can be very tough, but at the same time, it is so much easier, I think, because you don't have to rely on anyone else.
Mhm.
You have the creative freedom to schedule things when you need to schedule them, and you don't have to try and work with someone else on their schedule. Obviously, if you have a guest coming on, you have to do it that way. But when it comes to doing a
Right.
show, like I do this show by myself, but I have another show where I have a co-host, and when I used to have another show I had a co-host,
Mhm.
it is so hard to try and work things out with everybody.
It can be. I just know that, one of my earlier co-hosts, he was like, I work 6 days a week. The only day I have off is the day that we record.
Right.
And we had a farewell to him video. Um, and I don't know, just it's going good. I enjoy it. I had done 2 episodes for Prime Talk, and it turns out Prime Talk is the same name as a podcast company or something. So I was like, I have to change that. So I'm still working on that, and that one's more of a spiritual, esoteric type show, about healing and that type of stuff. Because you get a lot of people that are dealing with PTSD and definitely overstressed. And I'm on my way out of the community, out of the SSP community, but there just, seems like, oh, you know, people need to know what shadow work is and, be able to, access the help that they need, because there's certain programming that, it happens sometimes can make you, control quite a bit of your emotions. So if something is going good in your life, they'll dump everything they can on you, as a distraction. which is what they do for everybody else as well. These distraction here. Oh no, something's going on. We got to distract them. So, you'll get, and you can see it. Like, I'm not gonna name names, but that whole celebrity type courtroom drama.
Right. Yeah.
That was all staged. They were covering up something. I'm sure it was somebody's list somewhere.
I don't think there's a list. And I said this to my friend earlier, like everyone's making the jokes that Diddy didn't kill himself like they did with Epstein, but I'll say it. I don't care if I get in trouble. Here's my thought process on all of that, coming from a conspiracy minded person.
Mhm.
They would never allow any of that to make it public in the first place. So this whole thing is just a distraction and a staged event just in order to keep people's attention away, because who has the power to control everything, and they can control who's being arrested and everything else. They're not going to release any of that information. Like, he would never have gotten even caught had he not pissed someone else off.
Right.
So for me, he's just a sacrificial lamb for the moment.
Yeah, they do have those. It's like, you're one of us, they'll just boot you out. They don't, there's no love there.
He's made someone else in the elites mad at him, and now he'll be punished for it. But there's also the idea that Epstein was never even dead. He was just kind of shipped off back to Israel or wherever the hell they claim he went to, and still alive. Like, I go down so many different rabbit holes, and I don't usually talk about it on Tinfoil Tales because it's not what the point is. I have another show that I do all that crazy stuff on, but that's just kind of how I go about things. Like, when it comes to all the stuff that you see on TV, if you see on the media, it's like, if you're seeing it on there, it's clearly not true because you're only being shown what they want you to see.
Yes. I stopped watching any news on TV, radio. Nope. I don't listen to it. When people, like, it's bad enough that you see it all over social media, it's like, it's a distraction. I could see it, just, why can't anybody else?
Someone today who thinks they're prevalent in the cryptid community, and I won't name their names, but I will read the post that was posted today, and I ended up chiming in because I felt kind of the need to be a douche, I guess. I don't know. But it said, if you are in the audience watching evil, then you too are evil by association. And I said, in that regard, anyone who browses through social media, turns on mainstream news, or is somehow caught up in the distractions of the world would also be evil, which would essentially mean we are in some form or another. Well, then a couple hours later, he changed it. It says, if you choose to be in the audience watching evil, then you too are evil by association. Then he noted that he edited to make it more clearly to convey his meaning. Because not only did after I said that, a lot of other people started chiming in underneath what I had commented, saying the same thing, that he's basically saying, like, everybody's evil because they've seen something evil.
Right.
But don't broadly paint this big layer of bullshit just because you're on your high horse. I hate that about social media. I hate that about most people because they typically want to make everything so self-righteous, but they're just as hypocritical as the rest of them. And like I said, there's some stuff I was going to talk to you about here off air, so we're going to wrap this up. Okay. There's some things that I find kind of interesting that I don't want to have the focus of the episode. So,
okay. And also, just real quick, I'm also on Facebook with Rising Spirit, which is my holistic Reiki. I'm a Reiki master. So I do healing. I do work with animals. So, heal them. I remote heal. That's usually what I do because there aren't many people that live around here that are interested in that kind of work. So, shamanic healer. And what else? Prime Declassified is on Facebook as well, but you'll find it on Rebel. Usually Fridays, but I've taken a couple weeks off because I have injury, so it kind of sucks. But we'll be back. I have a good interview coming this weekend. So
I will make sure for everyone listening to include links. So you just send me some links and I will make sure to put them in the show notes. That way everyone can just click on my episode and go right to it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, Eve, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
Miigwech. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here.
It's been a pleasure. But for everyone out there listening, make sure to check out Prime Declassified and make sure to look for Eve.
Yeah, I'm on. Just friend me on Prime Declassified. I do have a Facebook, but that's kind of I have followers. I'm weird. I gotta have just my little bit of friends.
Right. I made that separate account just so I can keep my own personal life personal.
Mm-hmm.
I had too many people reaching out to me, and some actually reached out to my wife trying to get hold of me. I was like, all right, we're crossing that little
yeah.
We're crossing a line there, but
right. Yeah, that's what I think too.
But yeah. So anyone out there listening, make sure to check out Prime Declassified, look for Eve on Facebook, and check the show notes for the links. But we're going to wrap this one up. So thanks to Eve, and thanks for listening.
Bye.
And that's the show, everyone. I really hope you guys enjoyed the conversations. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to the contact section of tinfoiltales.com. Just get your message to me. We'll get something scheduled for a future episode. And just remember, the truth lies in the stories we share, the connections we make. Stay curious, stay open-minded. Thank you all for joining us on this journey. And until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep exploring the unknown. Good night, everyone.
Tinfoil Tales in the headphones. Yeah, it's time to rock. Got a story about a cryptid creature. Let's take a walk. Bigfoot, Dogman, they're out there in the dark. But the truth is out there like an alien spark. UFO sightings got the whole world shook. Conspiracies unfold like a story in a book. Media control, trying to keep us blind. But oh, before gonna use my own mind. In history, they don't want us to know the secrets they're hiding, the truth they won't show. Dominant of society, they keep us in chains. When standing tall, it's time to break the reins. Control, trying to keep us blind. But I won't be fooled, gonna use my own mind. In history, they don't want